3 days after I came home from the hospital, I found a sold sign in front of my house. My house. The house I had spent 37 years paying for. The house where my wife had raised our son. The house where I had buried my wife's ashes beneath the maple tree in the backyard because she always told me she wanted to stay close to home. I stood there, staring at that red sign while my hands started shaking. Then I noticed something taped to the front door. A legal notice. My name was on it. But underneath my name was a sentence that made my stomach turn. Property ownership has been legally transferred. I called my son. He answered on the third ring. I didn't say hello. I simply asked, "What did you do?" There was a long silence. Then my son said 4 words I'll never forget. "Dad, you weren't using it." I looked at the house. My wife's flowers were still growing beside the porch. Her photograph was still hanging over the fireplace, and my son's childhood height marks were still carved into the doorframe. I whispered, "You sold my home." He answered, "I had to." But 3 hours later, I discovered something he never expected me to find. The house hadn't been sold for my medical bills. It had been sold for $640,000, and the hospital had only cost me $38,700. Someone had kept the rest, and that someone wasn't a stranger. For 37 years, I believed the hardest thing a father could survive was losing his wife. I was wrong. Losing your wife hurts, but discovering that your own child has been quietly dismantling your life while looking you in the eyes every day, that's something different. Because this isn't just a story about a house, it's about trust. It's about what happens when someone you raised decides your love is an asset they can liquidate. And by the end of this story, I had to make a choice that every parent hopes they never has to make. I had to decide whether being a good father meant forgiving my son or finally letting him face the consequences of what he had done. My name is Daniel Carter. I'm 64 years old, and until this happened, I thought I knew my son. His name is Ryan. He was 36. He had always been the charming one, the kid who could walk into a room and make everyone like him within 5 minutes. When he was little, he followed me everywhere. When I repaired the old truck in the garage, he sat on a wooden crate beside me and handed me tools. When I worked late, he would wait by the window for my headlights. I remember one night when he was about 10, he asked me, "Dad, will this house always be ours?" I laughed. I told him, "As long as we're alive, son." I never imagined those words would come back to haunt me. After my wife, Margaret, died, Ryan became more involved in my life. At least that's what I thought. He started calling more. He brought groceries. He drove me to appointments. He told me I shouldn't be living alone. I thought he was worried about me. Now I realize he wasn't only worried about me. He was watching an opportunity. 3 months before the hospital stay, Ryan started talking about the house. "Dad, you should think about downsizing." I told him I wasn't interested. He tried again. "It's too much house for one person." I said, "It's the only home I've known for 37 years. He didn't argue. He simply smiled. Of course. 2 weeks later, he asked for my property documents. He said the bank needed them because he was helping me organize my finances. I gave them to him. That was my first mistake. My second mistake was trusting my son enough to believe he would never use those documents against me. Then I got sick. A sudden infection landed me in the hospital. I spent 11 days there. Ryan visited almost every day. He sat beside my bed. He brought coffee. He told the nurses he was my son. He even told me, "Don't worry, Dad, I've got everything handled at home." I believed him. That's what makes betrayal so dangerous. The person who betrays you doesn't always look like an enemy. Sometimes they look exactly like the person you've spent your entire life protecting. When I was discharged, Ryan drove me home. Or at least that's what I thought he was doing. We were about 10 minutes away when he said, "Dad, maybe you should stay with me for a few weeks." I asked why. He said, "Just until you're stronger." I refused. He didn't argue. Again. "Okay, Dad." Then he dropped me off at the house. I stepped out of the car. I remember feeling relief, the smell of the garden, the porch, the old wooden door. Everything looked exactly as I remembered it. Then I saw the sign. Sold. I thought it was a mistake. Maybe the real estate company had put it there by accident. Maybe it belonged to a neighbor. Maybe I was still confused from the medication. Then I saw the legal notice. My name, my address, the transfer date. My hands became cold. I called Ryan. "What did you do?" He didn't deny it. He said, "Dad, you were in the hospital." That doesn't answer my question. You needed money. I had money. You needed more. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "How much did you sell it for?" He paused. Then he said, "Enough." That word changed everything. I asked again, "How much?" He hung up. That was when I knew this wasn't a misunderstanding. This was betrayal.
The next morning, a moving truck arrived. A woman stepped out. She looked at me and said, "Are you Mr. Carter?" "Yes." She handed me a folder. "I was told the property had already transferred." I looked at the papers. She apologized. Then she said, "We're scheduled to start moving the remaining items tomorrow." I felt humiliated, not angry, humiliated, because this wasn't happening privately anymore. My neighbors knew. The people who had watched me mow that lawn for 20 years knew. The woman across the street who had brought soup after Margaret died knew. And now everyone knew that my own son had sold my house. One neighbor came over. He asked, "Daniel, is everything okay?" I lied. "It's a paperwork issue." He looked at me. He knew I was lying. By noon, people were whispering. By evening, someone had already posted about the property sale in the neighborhood group. Then Ryan called. "You need to stop making this difficult." I said, "You sold my house. You're acting emotional. My wife is buried in that backyard." He went silent. Then he said, "Dad, Mom is gone." I couldn't breathe. He continued, "You can't keep living in the past." I looked through the window at the maple tree, the tree Margaret and I had planted on our 5th anniversary. I whispered, "That's not your decision." Ryan said, "It is now." Then he hung up. That night, I sat alone in the house. Every room felt different, not because the furniture had changed, because I finally understood that my son had been planning this while I was trusting him. And then I remembered something. The property documents. Ryan had them, which meant there had to be a paper trail. So I stopped feeling sorry for myself, and I started investigating. The next morning, I went to the county records office. I asked for the property transfer documents. The clerk pulled up my address. Then she looked at me. "Mr. Carter, are you sure you want these records?" I said, "Yes." She printed everything. The sale price was listed right there, $640,000. I stared at the number. My hospital bill was $38,700.
Even if Ryan had paid every medical expense I owed, there was still more than $500,000 unaccounted for. Then I saw the buyer's name, Cedar Ridge Holdings, LLC. I didn't recognize it, so I searched the company. The registered owner was a man named Marcus Hale. That name meant nothing to me, but the registered mailing address did. It was the same address as a consulting company Ryan had been working for. My hands went cold. I kept digging. Cedar Ridge had purchased 3 properties in the previous 18 months, all from elderly homeowners, all through private agreements, all below market value. My house had been different. It had sold at market value, which meant the $640,000 wasn't the real problem. The problem was where the money went. I contacted the bank. The transfer documents showed that the proceeds had been deposited into an account controlled by Ryan, not mine, his. I stared at the paperwork. My son hadn't sold my house to pay my bills. He had sold it and taken control of the money. But there was one more document, a power of attorney form. The signature looked like mine, but it wasn't. I knew immediately, because my signature had one small habit. I always crossed the T in my last name twice. The signature on the document didn't. Someone had forged it. I took photographs of everything. Then I called an attorney. She looked at the documents. After 20 minutes, she said something that made my blood run cold. "Daniel, this isn't just a family dispute." "What is it?" "If this signature is forged, we're talking about fraud." I asked, "Can I get my house back?" She didn't answer immediately. Then she said, "Maybe." Maybe? That was enough. For the first time since I saw that sold sign, I had hope. But then the attorney found something even more disturbing. The power of attorney had been notarized while I was in the hospital. I was unconscious that day. I couldn't have signed it. Someone had come into my life pretending to be me, and someone had helped them make it legal.
I thought Ryan was the mastermind. I was wrong. The attorney discovered that the notary who certified the document was connected to Marcus Hale. Then we found bank records. Ryan had received $75,000, but Marcus Hale had transferred another $120,000 to a different account. That account belonged to someone I knew, someone I hadn't seen in years, my ex-wife's sister, Linda, Margaret's sister. I couldn't understand it. Linda had always hated me. She blamed me for not saving Margaret, even though the doctors had told us there was nothing more anyone could do. I called her. She answered. "Daniel?" I said, "Why did you help Ryan sell my house?" Silence. Then she started crying. I expected denial. Instead, she said, "I didn't know he was going to take everything." "What did you know?" She told me the truth. Ryan had approached her months earlier. He told her I was becoming mentally incompetent. He told her I was going to lose the house anyway. He said he wanted to protect the family. Linda believed him. She signed documents. She introduced him to Marcus, and then she received money. But Linda wasn't the final surprise. She told me something else. "Daniel, Ryan wasn't trying to steal your house." I asked, what was he trying to do? She whispered, he was trying to save himself. I froze. Ryan wasn't simply greedy. He was drowning in debt, credit cards, gambling, business loans, private lenders. He owed almost $400,000. The house wasn't his first attempt to get money. It was his last. But then Linda said, there was one thing Ryan didn't know. What? She hesitated. Margaret left you something. I sat down. What are you talking about? Linda told me that shortly before Margaret died, she had changed her estate plan. She had placed a portion of her inheritance into a protected trust, a trust
Ryan couldn't access, and the house was supposed to remain in my name for the rest of my life. I stared at the documents. Ryan hadn't just betrayed me, he had violated the final wishes of his mother, and suddenly the entire story became personal in a way I hadn't expected. The attorney filed an emergency injunction. The sale was frozen. The buyers couldn't move into the house. The bank accounts connected to the transaction were placed under review. And Ryan received a call from investigators. He came to my house that evening, or rather, he came to the house he thought he had already taken from me. He stood on the porch. I opened the door. He looked exhausted. "Dad." I said nothing. He looked behind me, at the hallway, at the photographs, at the old furniture. Then he said, "I can explain." I answered, "You already did." He started crying. "I was desperate. You forged my signature. I thought I could fix it. You sold your mother's home. I was going to pay you back." "With what?" He had no answer. I stepped outside. He looked at me. "Dad, please." I asked, "Did you ever plan to tell me?" He looked down. "No." That answer hurt more than anything. Not the money, not the house, the honesty. Because for the first time, he wasn't trying to manipulate me. He was admitting what he had done. I said, "Then you need to understand something." He looked up. "I love you." He started crying. "But I will not protect you from the consequences." His face changed. "Dad," I continued, "you made your choice." He whispered, "Are you pressing charges?" I looked at him. "Yes." He froze. I could see the little boy who once followed me around the garage, but I could also see the man standing in front of me, and I finally understood. If I saved him now, he would never learn. The case moved quickly. The forged power of attorney became the center of the investigation. The notary confessed. Linda cooperated. Marcus Hale disappeared for 6 days before authorities located him, and Ryan finally admitted everything. But there was one thing I didn't expect. He told investigators that he had never intended to keep the entire $640,000. He said he owed money to someone else, someone dangerous, someone who had threatened him. That person had been pressuring him for months, and Ryan had believed selling my house was the only way to survive. I asked him why he didn't come to me. He said, "Because I knew you'd say no." That sentence stayed with me. He knew I'd say no. So instead of respecting my answer, he stole the right to make the decision away from me. That was the real betrayal. Not the house, not the money, my choice. He decided that because I was his father, my property belonged to him. And that's when I understood something painful. Sometimes people don't betray you because they don't love you. Sometimes they betray you because they believe your love guarantees forgiveness. And I had spent years teaching Ryan exactly that. Every time he made a mistake, I fixed it. Every time he got into trouble, I paid. Every time he failed, I gave him another chance. I thought I was being a father. Maybe I had been teaching him that consequences were for other people. The court eventually ruled that the property transfer was fraudulent. The house came back to me. The $640,000 was recovered. Ryan was charged. He lost his business. He lost his apartment. He lost almost everything he had built. But I still had one decision left. Ryan asked me not to testify against him. He said, "Dad, please, you're the only person who can save me." Those words sounded exactly like the boy who used to stand beside me in the garage. But I couldn't do it. I told him, "I've saved you your entire life." He looked at me, and it didn't save you. He started crying. I continued, "This time, you have to save yourself." I testified, not because I hated him, because I loved him enough to stop lying for him. And when I walked out of the courthouse that day, I felt something I hadn't felt in months: peace. 6 months later, I stood beneath the maple tree in my backyard. Margaret's ashes were still there. The house was still mine, but everything felt different. Ryan had started therapy. He was working again, slowly, honestly, without asking me for money. One Saturday morning, he came to the house. He stood at the front gate. I walked toward him. He said, "Dad, I don't expect you to forgive me." I looked at him. I already did. His eyes filled with tears. But forgiveness doesn't mean trust comes back overnight. He nodded. "I know." I handed him a shovel. He looked confused. I pointed toward the maple tree. "Your mother always wanted this garden cleaned up." He smiled through his tears, and for the next 2 hours, we worked. We didn't talk about the house. We didn't talk about the money. We didn't talk about court. We just worked, like we used to, father and son. Not perfect, not healed, but finally honest. And maybe that's what rebuilding really looks like. Not pretending nothing happened, not erasing the damage, but deciding that the damage doesn't have to be the end of the story. Because I learned something I wish I had understood 30 years earlier. Love without boundaries can become permission. Sometimes the person you love needs your help. Sometimes they need your forgiveness. And sometimes they need you to let them face the consequences of what they've done. That isn't cruelty. That's love with a backbone.
So I want to ask you something. If your own child secretly sold your house, forged your signature, and stolen hundreds of thousands of dollars from you, would you press charges? Would you protect your child, or would you let them face the consequences? And if they came back years later, truly changed, would you ever trust them again? I want to know what you would do. Tell me your answer in the comments. And if you've ever had to choose between forgiving someone you love and protecting yourself, share your story. Your experience might help someone watching this who is facing the same decision right now. If this story made you feel something, hit the like button. And if you want more stories about betrayal, family secrets, consequences, redemption, and the choices people make when everything falls apart, subscribe to Tribal Survival Feast. Because sometimes the hardest thing a parent can say is no. But sometimes that one word is what finally teaches someone how to stand on their own. Every betrayal leaves a scar, every choice has a consequence, and every family has a story.